This is Germania, 2,000 years ago. It is a land inhabited by many different tribes, lumped together by the Romans who call them all Germani. It is a land of forest, swamps, and heaths, and to a traveler from the Roman Empire would seem wild, unforgiving, and harsh. Yet this land is dotted with thousands of farmsteads and small villages, each inhabited at least by one large extended family. They live in longhouses, and their primary means of subsistence is agriculture. Wealth is often measured in cattle, but grains such as wheat and barley are very important to the Iron Age diet. This is a strictly oral society, with no means of writing, but something is about to change that. In 12 BC, Roman legions crossed the Rhine River and invaded Germania Magna, and pushed all the way to the Elbe River. The Germanic tribes that inhabited this region between Rhine and Elbe were fierce warriors. Though the well-trained and equipped legions had little to fear of the average Germanic farmer, it was the retinue warriors that caused them the most trouble. Retinue warriors were professional fighters who had sworn their services to a chieftain or other prominent member of Germanic society. They carried expensive equipment made of iron, which had to be painstakingly smelted from bog ore, refined into quality iron for weapons, and then hammered into shape. Armed with iron-headed lances, shields with iron bosses, sometimes pointed, the most wealthy ones were armed with swords, single-edged for infantry and double-edged for cavalry. Being professional fighters, they would often hire their services out to other tribes, and even to the Romans. However, these fierce warriors could not stop the Roman onslaught and were conquered. However, in 9 AD, Arminius, a noble of the Cherusci tribe, united various tribes together, including the Catai, Bructeri, Marzai, Sugambrai, and Chaukai, and ambushed the Romans in the Teutoburg forest. Using a wall to pin the unprepared Romans against a massive swamp, Arminius's Germanic warriors rained spears and rocks upon the legionaries. The Romans tried unsuccessfully to assault the Germanic wall. When the Roman lines broke, they attempted to flee and were cut down. 3 entire legions were slaughtered, and the Romans retreated back to the Rhine River. However, all Roman contact was not lost. Trading flourished between the Germanic tribes and the Roman Empire. A popular commodity was amber. This was readily available in the Baltic and on Jutland, but was very rare in the Mediterranean. As a result, many tribes grew rich from the trade of amber to the Roman Empire. And because of this, Germanic tribes had access to Roman luxury items such as glass, fine silverwork, and other expensive items. In the decades and centuries that followed the failed Roman conquest of Germania, both the Germanic tribes and the Romans learned a great deal from one another, and there was much cultural interaction, much of which was peaceful, along the Rhine and Danube rivers. Warriors from Germania Magna sometimes served in the Roman army as auxiliaries, and brought back certain Roman ideas to Germania, one of which was writing. Writing was essential to the communication system of the empire. Everything from ideas to orders could be written down and easily transferred. Many runologists agree that the use of runes came about as a result of the Roman influence of writing.
Now the Negau helmet is fascinating, primarily because if it is taken as a Germanic name, as it usually is, then it is the first example of anything in Germanic. The orthography, the spelling system used, is Etruscan rather than Runic because of its early age. But it does read Harigasti Tewa, which would be an early form of Harigastis Tiwas, the idea of Harigast, the priest, right? Now, the only problem with this reading is the fact that the NZs that would represent the early nominative in Proto-Germanic are missing. However, this might just be a fact of shortening. This might have been an act of shortening the name on the inscription, or it might actually be an example of early West Germanic, as some scholars have posited. But to my mind, that seems a little unlikely because the inscription is so early. The Meldorf fibula, conversely, is important for a slightly different reason. While if the Negau helmet is the first example of Germanic in any extent, the Meldorf fibula is the first example of Runic, perhaps, if it is indeed taken to be a Runic script. It has also been taken to be perhaps a Germanic individual fiddling with the Roman alphabet, in which case the inscription would read Idin, which would be a genitive of the name Ida, either for Ida if it's taken as feminine, or for Ido if it's taken as a masculine word. Or if it is Runic, if the Roman D is seen as a Runic Win character, then it would read Hiwi, which would be household or perhaps spouse. Now both words are found in early Germanic languages, so both are equally linguistically plausible. But Runic, of course, would be more important from a socio-orthographic perspective. It would demonstrate the evolution of this writing system and how and where the Runic system might have formed.